Hey everybody, welcome back to the Rule Your Pool podcast. It is February now, and I know we've missed a couple weeks, but I did forewarn you in the last several episodes that this is trade show season and we are traveling heavily. I've been gone each of the last 4 weeks in a row, I think, and I'm only here on weekends. So I'm trying to record when I am home in my closet studio, and I would have Jared on here. This is usually the part where I would say Jared's playing hard to get. But in reality, I didn't even ask him because he is busy. We're all busy. And I wanted to record this because I was just on a trip and I was talking to a lot of pool companies, and they all had the same kind of theme of some challenges that they're facing. And I've noticed this for a long time. It's not like it's brand new. This has been going on for a while, and it's not just in the pool industry. So in this episode, we're going to talk about ways to reduce employee turnover, or put another way, ways to improve employee satisfaction and retention. Keeping employees or even recruiting employees is very difficult, and I've got some pretty good ideas that I think you might like. I'm Eric Knight with Orenda. This is episode 54 of the Rule Your Pool podcast. Let's go. Welcome to Rule Your Pool, the podcast by Orenda that explains and simplifies pool chemistry so that anybody, regardless of experience, can understand it. I'm your host, Eric Knight, bringing clarity to these subjects so that you can bring clarity to your water. If you're ready to rule your pool, then let's go. As many of you know, I was a competitive swimmer before I got into the pool business. And the thing about swimming is it's an individual sport. You know, you're racing against the clock, you have your own lane, you're doing your own events for the most part, outside of the relays. And yet it's a team sport. You're an individual athlete, much like track and field, but you are a part of a bigger team. And I think that translates really well into pool service companies, for instance. Each individual service tech is driving around a truck and visiting several pools a day, cleaning them, adjusting their chemistry, but they're working for a company. Now, a lot of you listening are homeowners, and I suppose this episode isn't really for you, although I'm not going to tell you can't listen. There's nothing to hide here. I think it's good information because maybe it applies to you in your business too. This doesn't just apply to the swimming pool world. And then others of you listening could be sole proprietors, one-polers, business owners of yourself. And you can benefit from this too, even though, employee turnover isn't an issue for you because you work for you and it's just you. And we love you for that. And I think these ideas can translate into other industries and they apply to you as well. Because in this industry, the pool professional gets a bad rap. They're almost looked down upon. Some people are like, oh, it's just the pool boy or it's just the pool girl. I resent that. I don't think that's fair. If you think about it, a swimming pool professional has to be more than a kid who comes and cleans leaves out of a pool. For one thing, you have to have a basic understanding of electrical. You have to have a basic understanding of plumbing, sometimes carpentry. You have to be a chemist. You have to be able to come back in a hot day and clean a pool with who knows what contamination while you were gone. Once a week, you're going to try to clean a pool that's been open to the atmosphere and the elements for 7 days, and you are going to consistently try to keep that water clean and clear with all that possible contamination that you weren't there to witness. And yet you have to do this on a limited amount of time, usually under 30 minutes a week. It's not an easy job. So let's take a step back and let's think about people. Not the job, not the skills, the people. People are always the most important aspect of a business. Always. And whether they're really, really good or they're really, really bad, if they are necessary to the business, they have to feel valued and they have to be included in things. Maybe not high-end decisions, but at least a part of the team. They can't just be loners out there doing their own things. And one of the biggest issues that I see in the swimming pool business is service companies will have, let's say, 3 or 4 techs or maybe 20 techs. Who knows? It doesn't matter how many. What matters is they're all kind of doing their own thing. Oh, I learned how to do it this way, and I learned how to do it this way, and I've been doing this for 10 years, and I've been doing this for 30 years, and I like having my chlorine at X, and I like my chlorine at Y. And this guy over here likes 250 calcium. Yeah, but Jerry over there, he's a crazy one. He likes 400 plus calcium. And this guy shocks with cal-hypo or potassium monopersulfate. And that guy prefers liquid chlorine. Where's the consistency? How on earth are you supposed to get better as a company, let alone individuals, if you have no baseline? When you have a baseline, when you have a standard across the company, everyone's on the same page, and you gather what's called collective intelligence. Okay? And collective intelligence makes the team more cohesive. It makes people more included. It makes them better. And when people get better and more included and more cohesive, they're happier in their job, they get more fulfillment, they are less likely to leave, and profitability tends to go up. When everyone's doing their own thing, we see this all the time, and by the way, I'm not picking on any one company, it's like all of you, okay? This is a very, very common issue. When everyone's doing their own thing, nobody can really track their margins, because if somebody's doing their own thing, they're not going to want to admit if a pool is starting to turn green on them. So they're going to get ahead of it. They're going to extra shock, or they're going to cover up the mess. They're going to, oh no, I've got a calcium issue. They're going to put extra acid in that week to try to hide that issue. What it's doing is it's creating silos. It's creating barriers between employees. And I see these issues, just constantly. And sometimes it's completely ruining cultures. And I hate to say that, but I'm witnessing it. And by the way, this is not, as I've said before, this is not just in the pool business. It's in service trades all over the place. HVAC, plumbing, electrical, the same thing happens. It's in other businesses too. When we kind of hide what we're really trying to do just to get the job done, how are we supposed to learn from that? The other employees don't have a chance to learn from that incident because it might as well not have existed, but you're masking something. So one of the first things you can do to foster a team or family atmosphere is to begin with a baseline. I was just saying it this past week. A great baseline, for instance, could be a calcium hardness target. If every pool in your business is within, say, 50 parts per million of each other on calcium hardness, and by the way, that level depends on the LSI in your area. Michigan is going to need more than Miami. Tucson is going to need less than Traverse City. It just depends on your temperature. But let's say everybody in your company, because you're all in the same area, is going to have approximately the same calcium hardness. You're going to establish a minimum for every single pool. That is the foundation for the LSI. And when you have the foundation, you can build an LSI strategy that is uniform across your pools. That is extremely powerful. And when you have that calcium hardness, you can adjust your alkalinity lower. You can contain pH better. And everybody in the company is going to be able to do this. And actually, before you even adjust calcium hardness, the first thing you should do is get everybody's cyanuric acid to 50 or less. You don't want to invest in all this calcium chloride to raise calcium levels if you just have to dilute down to get your CYA into respectable numbers. So start with diluting, get your pools in line, then get your calcium hardness to a certain amount. And by the way, if you have any questions about this, reach out to us. You can email podcast@orendatech.com. But if you're a service company, you probably already know how to reach Orenda anyway, more direct than that. But if you all have a standard, you have a standard minimum calcium, you have a 50 part per million range. Where I was last week, I was saying, based on the weather, based on the temperatures, 350 to 400. If every pool is between 350 to 400 calcium, now you have a baseline. Then you set your alkalinity. The pH is going to naturally be contained. You start setting up best practices. And we're going to talk more about this in that episode about standardizing. But what it's doing is it's creating a team environment where everybody can learn from everybody else. There's only two types of pool professionals out there, those that have some problem pools and those that don't admit they have problem pools. But everyone's got some, or has had some in the past, and will have some in the future. So if we can learn from others' problem pools, we don't have to have everybody that has some problem pools. Maybe it's just a couple of employees, because everybody collectively learns from other people's experiences because you all have the same baseline, and it's going to stand out. It's going to be much easier to correct And so if Jerry over there is having an issue, everyone can learn from it. Whereas before, everyone was doing their own thing, nobody would know. How do you measure that? Now you get to measure it. So let me expand more here without going too far down that rabbit trail. We want to build a family and team atmosphere. We want to gather input from our employees. Let them know their opinions and experience matter. Now, you may not go with them, you may decide against them, but they still need to be heard in many cases. And what you'll find is when you allow the employees to share something, there's a good chance they know something you don't, despite being new or just doing their route, but they know their pools better than you do. Don't think for a second that they don't. Here's another thing, another idea to go along with this team family atmosphere. What if you came up with some sort of reward system? It doesn't have to be financial. When I was swimming, we had something called the Mojo. It was Mojo the monkey. It was a little stuffed animal. It was silly. It was a children's toy. But, and we were a post-grad swim team, by the way. We're all in our 20s. This Mojo was nothing but this stuffed animal that got passed once a week by the person who had it. They decided who it went to, for anything excellent that they did. So we had, I think it was 14 or 15 people on the team at the time. You know, maybe we had a really, really rough set and somebody just performed incredibly well. Or they just pushed it really hard that week. They got better. They worked really hard in the gym. Maybe they got a max. You know, they maxed on bench press or something. Or they hit an interval for the first time. Whatever it was, they made themselves and they made the team better. But only one person got that Mojo every week. And the coaches didn't decide who got the Mojo. The previous Mojo holder decided. And it formed this, how do you describe it? It was kind of I wouldn't say an internal competition, but it was always like, I want the Mojo. It just created sort of a desirability of like, I want that monkey. I don't care about the monkey, but I want to be acknowledged and recognized by my peers for being excellent this week, for pushing it beyond my comfort zone. That's how you earn the Mojo. Somebody on our team got the Mojo when they vomited in the gutter during an extremely hard set, and they rallied and they completed the set. Was that their highlight of their swimming career? No, but it was gutsy. It was grit, and they deserved the Mojo that week. Translate that to the pool business for a second. Maybe it doesn't have to be the employee that has no problems that week. Why wouldn't something like that go to the employee who really struggled with a problem and figured it out? And maybe they called us or they called you. They asked for help. They got it. They learned from it. They corrected it. The company becomes more profitable when that problem is fixed. That employee could get something like the Mojo. Well, that's what we had. It was called the Mojo. I mean, you have your own thing. It could be a skimmer cap that's spray painted gold. Who cares? It just has to have significance that is assigned by the group. That is a very cool and powerful way to create bonding between employees. It worked really well for us when I was swimming. Another idea you could do is involve the homeowners, involve the customers. I had this idea the other day, and it's not completely fleshed out, but if you've ever flown on Southwest Airlines, when you get to A-list, like we are because we travel all the time, you have to fly a lot and you get some perks. And one of those perks is one of the most brilliant things I have ever seen a business do. They mail you a letter, and inside you get 4 pieces of paper that they're perforated and they tear off. Like they're kind of like 4 tickets. And they're called "Thank You for Kicking Tail." And they're silver, and they call them kicktails. And on the back, there's this 16-digit unique code or whatever. And they're the size of a credit card, so you put them in your wallet, or at least you're supposed to. And when an employee of any kind at Southwest Airlines gives excellent customer service, or they make you laugh, or they do something that you feel is worthy of going above and beyond, a normal flight attendant or a gate agent or a bag handler, it doesn't matter. It could be someone on the phone. given some kicktails over the phone. I asked them to write down the code. They don't know who you are. They don't know that you're an A-lister. But they are trained to assume anybody could have one of those A-list kicktails in their pocket. And so they're incentivized as employees at all levels of the company to treat everybody well, to have excellent customer service. And let me tell you something, it works. I just gave out a kicktail this past week. So for some reason, my flight got canceled and twisted around with the computer system. I called up on the phone and they fixed it for me. They got me home on time instead of a day late, and I gave them a kicktail over the phone. They loved it. It's worth something to them. It's actually worth a pretty significant amount of dollars, apparently, in their own company store. They could get some cool clothes or electronics or whatever. But the point is, they earned it. They earned it. And the only way they can earn it is by going above and beyond in their job. Maybe you give out a few of those to your homeowners. When you see, Mrs. Homeowner, when you see the pool guy, if you see our employee doing something above and beyond, they're doing a great job. If you give them one of these, it means something to them. But don't give it to them for any reason. It has to be earned. Well, now the employees kind of have a little competition going. They are incentivized to treat the homeowners really, really well, treat the backyard well, treat the dog well. You're going to start seeing things where employees are going above and beyond in ways like using a leaf blower to get organics away from the pool. We've seen that. That's always nice. Things like this are all around you. And I'm sure you can go online or YouTube videos and figure out what other companies are doing to keep team building at an all-time high, to keep camaraderie positive. It's a great way. As long as you have this team family atmosphere and you treat people with respect and pay them as well as you can for what they're doing, employee turnover is usually not that big of an issue. It's very hard in this day and age, though. I understand that. I'm not saying that it's easy. What I am saying is it doesn't have to be really difficult either. There are ways that you can keep people a part of your culture by having a really good culture. So we talked about standardizing your chemistry. We talked about setting a baseline. We talked about some loyalty things and just rewards, some sort of reward system. I love the idea of the mojo because it costs nothing, but it's a very, very powerful idea. What about taking your newfound profit when you standardize your route? Because now you're going to be able to forecast, spoiler alert for that episode, you're going to be able to forecast your costs because everyone's doing the same thing. If you have increased profits, why not invest in the people? Maybe it's better uniforms or getting the trucks detailed. Everybody wants to take pride in their work. Nobody wants to be looked down upon. I certainly don't. And I can't imagine any employee would. It's a really good feeling to show up dressed to impress, even though you're cleaning pools. But showing up in, ratty clothes that are chlorine stained, don't get me wrong, done it. There's nothing wrong with it. But there's also nothing wrong with having a good uniform that you can wear on a good day. These sort of things, they improve the feel of the brand. They improve the atmosphere of the culture. I don't know how better to articulate that, but I think you know what I mean. At least I hope you do. But, showing up with a cleaner truck, paying for a car wash every once in a while, those kind of things. Those things matter. They make a big difference. And it's not, hey, you should get your truck cleaned. It's not that. It's more like, hey, we as a culture, we want our trucks to be cleaned. We want to get the trash out of the passenger seat. We represent this brand, and the brand got our back. They want to give back. It's reciprocal. Respect goes both ways. I've got two more ideas here. Training and increasing the margin for error. I was talking to a customer a while ago, and I asked, why did you adopt the Orenda program? And when I say the Orenda program, I'm not just talking about using our phosphate remover or using our products here and there. I mean like going all in on the Orenda program. Why? Why would you change everything? Using the LSI, reducing CYA, abandoning old practices for new practices, trusting in the things that we say beyond our products. I mean, just adopting our philosophy in general. And the answer kind of surprised me. His answer was, it reduces employee turnover. I was like, what? What do you mean by that? And he said, well, your products work, but it's more than that. It gives my guys early wins before they're really even fully trained. It gives my people confidence. It gives them a bigger margin for error. So I know if we purge the pool with enzymes at the beginning of the year and they put X amount of enzymes in the skimmer every week, that pool is going to look pretty dang good. And if we remove phosphates and do our part, the likelihood of these problems happening are very low. And my new employees are getting complimented early on, even though they don't know what they're doing yet. They're getting complimented. They feel good. And it's reducing turnover. Now, that doesn't have to be just an Orenda thing. I mean, I think there's a lot of good products out there. But think about removing things from the equation. How can you improve the margin for error? One way you can do that is you can decide to take things away. We don't want complexity in our water. We want simplicity. We are minimalists. Let's get oils and organics out. They are the vast majority of chlorine demand, and chlorine is getting more expensive. I don't know if you've noticed. If over 90% of chlorine's demand is non-living organics, which it is, address those properly. Suddenly you don't have to worry about the scum line on your tiles because you're addressing the organics, specifically the synthetic organics like sunscreen, lotions, tanning oils, things like that. Natural organics too, tannins, leaves, acorns, berries, seed pods, all that stuff. Take care of those with enzymes. Get them out of the equation. Now you have a lot more chlorine to handle all the other stuff. Because chlorine wasn't made to get rid of sunscreen. It was made to kill germs, and it kills algae really well. Chlorine does. But not if it's used up and you have none left. Another great way to remove things from the equation is remove overstabilization from the equation. Don't use trichlor every single week. Don't let your CYA get over 50. And if you do, just understand you have to maintain more free chlorine. I mean, you could do it. It's just a little more difficult. Consult our 4 pillars. We have an entire academy program called The 4 Pillars. Pillar number 1, LSI balance. Pillar 2, organic waste management. Pillar 3, phosphate removal. And Pillar 4, minimal CYA. If you do these things, you greatly increase the margin for error. So if somebody does screw up, it's still not a crisis. And if you have a baseline, you're going to notice it. You're going to notice that something's off when you look at their chemical records or their chlorine consumption or their acid consumption. Something's going to stand out because it's going to be different. It's going to deviate from that baseline, and that is collective intelligence. You now have data points that you can compare to. So, that being said, the last step of this would be training. I just mentioned the Orenda Academy, but there's also this podcast. There's also a ton of information online, not just from us, from all sorts of companies. You can get them CPO trained. You can get people in these classes at trade shows. Good training is a really, really good way to keep people in the trade and hopefully keep them within your company as well. You can train them yourselves. You can invite us in to train. You can invite other companies in to train. You can send them to trainings like the Jandy School or the Pentair training events, or you know what I mean? Like, manufacturers want to train too. Just give us the opportunity and we'll take it. So, in summary, if we're going to reduce employee turnover, we have to make them important. Create a team and family atmosphere. They need to be included. It gives them fulfillment. And then let that team build a healthy culture. Again, I liken the analogy of the mojo to, that was team driven. That was a team culture. That was not driven by the coach. The coach didn't decide who got the mojo. The team did. It's not the service manager. It's not the boss. It's within the team. The team starts to enforce positive cultural things like keeping the trucks clean, not overdoing it on chemicals, enforcing the baseline, having the same thing. You know, being a team. We're all in this together. We're going to gain our collective intelligence, and we're going to grow as a team. That's what you want. And when you do that, it's a lot less likely for that person to quit early. And I hope this resonates with you. I really do, because in the last several weeks, not just at the trade shows, but in the travels, it really hits close to home. We are not in an industry that is easy. This is not an easy job, and it's not easy to keep people. I'm Eric Knight with Orenda. This has been episode 54 of the Rule Your Pool podcast. Thanks for your time, everyone.
Thank you for listening to Rule Your Pool, a podcast by Orenda Technologies. For more information on what we discussed in this week's episode, check the links in the description or visit www.orendatech.com.
I hope you find this show valuable enough that you tap that subscribe button and share it with your friends. You can also like us on Facebook and social media. And with our help, you'll be able to rule your pool without over-treating it with chemicals and wasting money. I'll see you next episode.